Okay, what we're going to start to look at today then is P3 for business environment.
Yes.
Okay, P3 is what is known as functional areas. Now this is only the first part of P3. P3 is broken down into two smaller parts. Just like that P1 for marketing we did, the ANSOF, branding and customer relationship management, this is the first part of P3. Okay, you're going to have to get used to this pass, merit, distinction as different units. You have to kind of not compartmentalise, but realise the units are different and the criteria map to the specific unit. So P3, if you remember last week, those of you that are here again, we looked at stakeholders. What's a stakeholder?
Someone who's interested in business.
Someone who's interested in the business, exactly that. And that's what we looked at last week, the different types of stakeholders, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. So what we're looking at this week is what's known as functional areas of a business. Some people call this departments, but the problem with calling it departments is departments in a superstore could be groceries, clothes, electronic equipment. And that's what you must not think about these as. It's the different people within the business that have different roles and different responsibilities. So what you've got on the board there are the main functional areas. Finance, HR, customer services, marketing and sales, R&D, admin and production. Some text that you read will split these up, marketing and sales, but for the purposes of this, we put them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the very, very generic definitions of these functional areas. What you need to be thinking about as I'm talking this through is how can I explain it and then apply it to Poundland and to Apple. Bearing in mind, does anyone see a problem with that straight away?
Poundland probably don't have like IT support.
Perfect, okay. Smaller shops, sole traders, as we said, can't specialise, can't diversify. How the hell can they have 7 or 8 functional areas? But in effect they do, because it will be one person or 2 people or 3 people doing all of this. But it wouldn't be so obviously split up, whereas Apple are going to have tens and hundreds of people or thousands of people in each one of these. The first one, human resources, used to be called personnel, anything to do with staff, anything to do with people at the workplace. So it could be in terms of...
Will this be on the VLA?
This PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, PowerPoint and the video will be, so it's just anything additional that you want to write down.
Cool.
So HR to do with recruitment, so advertising for vacancies, liaising with all these other departments. What you've got to remember is, not to walk into the wall, what you've got to remember is that all these departments speak to each other. Because how can they know what job to advertise if R&D haven't said we need a new researcher? How can they know how to retain staff, retention being keeping them once you've got them, if they don't know who's leading in what department, or what functional area? Okay? One of the most important things is actually retention. It costs a lot of money to advertise for a member of staff, so once you get them, you want to keep them. So how do you do that? We look at training, we look at conditions of work, and we have worker representatives. You make sure that health and safety, we have HR people do health and safety checks. Told you before, haven't I? Coats on the backs of chairs. Health and safety risk, all these bags on the floor. You know, that's what we are judged on. Like I say, when we have our review, I will be kind of, making sure that no sliding on chairs, that's specific to our business. But what is health and safety at Apple? What is health and safety at the Pound Shop? This presentation jumps out customer services, but you probably all know what customer services is. It's serving customers, isn't it? It's making sure that you're meeting the needs of customers, making sure they're happy, making sure really that they're spending money. One of the facts is, if you experience bad customer service, you're going to tell 10 people. If you experience good customer service, would you even tell anyone, or maybe one person? Because as humans, you kind of focus on the negative. And that's just an example of what customer service can do. You should know what marketing is, because we've got a whole unit on it. So, looking at the market analysis, what kind of matrix might you use?
Product development.
That'll be one bit of it. What's the whole matrix called? ANSOF matrix, exactly, okay. Market strategy, so that will be our combination of the 4 Ps. What are we going to do? How are we going to sell it? What are we going to sell and where? And then the sales teams themselves, well, you go into Currys or Comet, and they're loitering, aren't they, with intent to to sell you things. And the second you start looking at something, they pounce. Does anyone work in a kind of environment like that? I'm going to admit to you. It's quite high pressure, and as a sales team, you're judged on your sales. So, research and development. This is really key. It's not market research. So this is not going out your questionnaires, your surveys. That comes under the marketing department. Finding out what people want and what people need comes under marketing. What they do is they actually produce the prototype. They find out if it's a drugs manufacturer, well, does this drug work? What improvement can we make to the product? Can you see here though that these departments have to have a really strong link? Because what's the point in making something better if no one cares about it? What's the point in finding out people really, really want something if they can't do it? So it was really key, the link between R&D and marketing is strong. What people forget about is the admin and the IT department. So who would the admin and IT, all the kind of additional people be at Highbury?
Reception.
Definitely. Receptionists?
Librarian.
Yeah, library.
Student support.
Student support.
Technician.
Technicians, caretakers, although they're the estates team, caretakers. You know, without them, the whole thing wouldn't work. You know, if your logins don't work, then you can't really do your work. They're not directly affecting you, but they still have to be there, don't they? Making the product. Someone's got to make the product. So you've got to make sure that the materials you need are there. You've got to make sure that the product's of a certain quality. You need to know what your capacity of production is. Because if marketing say we're going to need loads in February, then well, maybe actually no, we can't make that many in February. So we're going to have to increase production for 3 months to meet February's demand. So again, there's a huge link. How does each department know what each department does? Well, maybe HR going to put some training to explain what research and development do. It's the whole link. You've got to think of it as a web. The whole links between all the functional areas. And the final one, it's just basically any money coming in and then any money going out. So that might be taxes, it might be wages, it'll be setting budgets for departments. It's anything to do with money. Okay? What I've done there is very, very quickly gone through the functional areas. It's much better if you take a few moments to start to research and apply it to your functional areas of your two businesses, Apple and the Pound Shop. So what you've got to do is explain just a sentence or two, what does the functional area do, like the theory part, and then apply to your case study. So as I said before, everything's theory, application, theory, application. That shouldn't take too long, hopefully, because we need to move on to some virtual enterprise work today. Has anyone got any questions? No?